It's funny, isn't it, how we search for grand gestures in love. We think of moonlit serenades, surprise trips to Paris, diamond rings presented on bended knee. And those things, they have their place, they're the exclamation points in the long, unfolding sentence of a shared life. But sometimes the most profound, the most earth-shattering, the most relationship-altering moments come wrapped in the simplest of packages, uttered in a quiet voice, perhaps when the defenses are down and the air is thick with unspoken words. I remember Sarah and we'd been together for about 5 years at that point. The initial fireworks, while not gone, had settled into a comfortable, warm glow. We knew each other's coffee orders by heart, could finish each other's sentences, much to the annoyance of our friends, and had weathered a few storms, a job loss for me, a family illness for her. We thought we were solid. And we were mostly. But like any old house, there were creaks and groans we'd learned to live with, little areas of stubbornness, of unspoken resentments that had over time built tiny, almost invisible walls. This particular storm brewed over something ridiculously trivial, as they often do. It was a Saturday. I'd promised, or at least she thought I'd promised, to help her clear out the spare room. It had become a dumping ground for everything that didn't have a home: old college textbooks, half-finished craft projects, clothes we swore we'd fit into again someday. Sarah was on a decluttering kick, inspired by some minimalist guru she'd been watching online. I, on the other hand, had mentally bookmarked the day for a marathon session of a new video game I'd been itching to play. The morning started with a subtle tension. She was bustling, making noise with boxes. I was pretending to be engrossed in my phone, strategically avoiding eye contact. "Ready to make a start?" she finally asked, her voice a little too bright. "Oh, hey," I said, feigning surprise. "Start on what?" The brightness in her voice dimmed. "The spare room, Mark. We talked about it." "Did we?" "I thought we said maybe this weekend, depending on how we felt." My ego was already stirring, a little defensive beast. I didn't want to be wrong about my understanding. I definitely didn't want to sacrifice my precious gaming time. "No, Mark," she said, her voice firmer now. "We said this weekend." I specifically mentioned it on Wednesday because I wanted to get it done before my sister visits next week. A small, insignificant detail, but my pride latched onto it. "Well, I don't remember it that way. And honestly, I'm beat. I was really looking forward to just chilling today." And so it began. Classic dance of disagreement. Voices got a little louder. Accusations flew, not just about the spare room, but about me never listening, about her always nagging. Old grievances, conveniently packaged for the current argument, were unwrapped and thrown into the fray. My ego was in full battle mode. It whispered, "You're right. She's being unreasonable. Don't back down. You work hard, you deserve a day off." She didn't confirm it properly. Love, meanwhile, was cowering in the corner, bruised and bewildered. Love wanted us to connect, to understand, to find a middle ground. But ego was shouting too loudly. The argument ended, as these things often do, with a slammed door, mine, as I retreated to the living room with my headphones, and a heavy, suffocating silence. The rest of the day was a cold war. We moved around each other like strangers in a too-small apartment. Meals were eaten separately. The air crackled with unspoken resentment. My game, when I finally tried to play it, felt hollow. The victories were meaningless. Every so often, I'd hear a thud or a sigh from the spare room, a reminder of the battle I'd won by default, but at what cost? That night, we slept with a chasm between us in the bed, backs turned. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the argument. My ego was still trying to justify my actions. She should have been clearer. Why is it always my fault? But a smaller, quieter voice, the voice that sounded a lot like love or perhaps just basic decency, began to whisper too. Pointed out the disappointment in her eyes, the way her shoulders had slumped. It reminded me that it wasn't about being technically right or wrong, about whether the plans were confirmed or tentative. It was about her feeling unheard, unsupported. The next morning, Sunday, was even worse. The silence was heavier, more entrenched. Sarah was moving with a forced, brittle efficiency. I tried a tentative morning and got a clipped in response. My ego reared up again. See? She's the one being difficult now. She's punishing you. But then I saw her standing by the kitchen window, staring out at the gray drizzle, her coffee untouched. And there was something about the set of her shoulders, the slight tremble in her hand as she reached up to push her hair back, that just broke through. It wasn't anger I saw anymore, but a deep, weary sadness. And in that moment, the cost of my being right felt astronomically high. Felt like I was chipping away at the very foundation of what we had built. What did being right even mean if it made her look like that? If it made our home feel like a battleground? The truth was, I could have helped. I could have remembered, or at least been more open to her version of events. I could have chosen connection over conflict. My desire to be right had blinded me to her need for partnership. My ego had been a destructive force, prioritizing my individual desire over our collective well-being. Took me most of the morning wrestling with that stubborn pride. Satanicious beast ego. Clings on, whispering justifications, feeding on self-righteousness. But love, when you finally give it a chance to speak, has a different kind of strength. It's not loud or demanding. It's persistent, gentle, and ultimately far more persuasive. Love says, what truly matters here? Your pride or her heart? Your temporary win or our lasting peace? I found her in the spare room, which was now surprisingly organized, though she looked exhausted. She was sitting on an old trunk, listlessly sorting through a box of photographs. I stood in the doorway for a moment, my heart thumping. This was it. The moment of truth. Could I do it? Could I dismantle that wall I'd helped build? Sarah, I said, my voice softer than I intended. She looked up, her eyes wary. I took a breath. And then I said the words. The simple, unadorned, terrifyingly vulnerable words. I was wrong. Just 3 words. No excuses, no justifications, no, but you also. Just. I was wrong. The change in her face was instantaneous. It was like a switch had been flipped. The wariness softened, the tension in her shoulders eased just a fraction. Her eyes, which had been guarded, flickered with something like surprise, then a cautious hope. Continued, the words coming more easily now that the first, hardest ones were out. I was wrong about yesterday. I was a jerk. I should have helped. I should have listened. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you and your plans weren't important. They are. You are. Silence for a beat. Then she let out a long, slow breath. Oh, Mark, she said, and her voice was thick with emotion. A tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. And that was the moment. That was the moment the ice shattered. It wasn't just about the spare room anymore. It was about acknowledging the hurt, validating her feelings. My I was wrong wasn't an admission of defeat in an argument. It was an admission that I valued us more than I valued being right. It was an olive branch, a white flag, an open door. She patted the space beside her on the trunk. I went and sat down. For a while we just sat there, the quiet now comfortable, healing. I was so upset, she finally said, her voice still a little shaky. It wasn't just about the room. It felt like you just didn't care. I know, I said. And that's on me. My ego got in the way. I was being stubborn and selfish. And then we talked. Really talked. Not just about the stupid spare room, but about how we communicate or fail to. About the little ways we sometimes take each other for granted. It wasn't a blame game, it was a let's get it right conversation. We weren't on opposing sides anymore. We were a team again, figuring out how to navigate the game of life together better. Those 3 words, I was wrong, had acted like a key, unlocking a level of honesty and vulnerability we hadn't accessed in a while. Showed I was willing to put my ego aside, to own my part. And in doing so, it didn't make me weaker, it made us stronger. It rebuilt a bridge of trust that had been damaged. It reminded us both that our relationship was a living thing, something that needed nurturing, understanding, and yes, sometimes a humble apology. It's a profound act, admitting fault. Ego screams against it. Ego wants to be infallible, always correct, always justified. Ego thrives on conflict, on proving the other person wrong. Ego is a lonely fortress. But love understands that true strength lies in connection, in empathy, in the courage to be vulnerable. Love knows that "let's get it right" is infinitely more powerful than "I'm right." When you say "I was wrong," you're not just ending an argument. You're saying, "I see you. I hear you. Your feelings matter to me. Our relationship matters more to me than my pride. I'm willing to learn and grow for us." It's a testament to growth because it shows you're capable of self-reflection, of recognizing your own imperfections. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, say the wrong thing, act selfishly at times. Owning that is a sign of maturity. Tells your partner that you're not stuck in your ways, that you're committed to evolving both as an individual and as a partner. Builds trust because it demonstrates honesty and accountability. When your partner knows you can admit when you've messed up, they feel safer. They know you're not going to gaslight them or twist the narrative to always make yourself look good. They can trust that you'll take responsibility for your actions, which is fundamental to any healthy relationship. This trust isn't just about fidelity. It's about emotional safety, knowing you can be vulnerable without being attacked or dismissed. Think about the opposite. When someone never admits they're wrong, when they always have to be right, how does that feel? It's exhausting. It's invalidating. Creates an environment where true communication can't flourish because one person is always on the defensive, always trying to win rather than understand. Over time, that erodes trust, creates resentment, and slowly, surely pulls people apart. The ego might win the battle, but the relationship loses the war. But when love takes the reins and allows humility to speak, something magical happens. The walls come down. Defenses lower. Hearts open. "I was wrong" isn't a sign of weakness. It's a declaration of strength. The strength to choose connection over conflict, understanding over assertion, us over me. Since that day with the spare room, Sarah and I were not perfect. We still have disagreements. We still sometimes let our egos get the better of us for a moment, but we're quicker to recognize it now. And we're quicker to deploy those powerful, healing words. We've learned that the sting of admitting fault is temporary, but the strength and closeness it fosters is lasting. It's not always easy. Sometimes the words catch in your throat, pride fighting for its last breath. But then you look at the person you love, you remember what's truly at stake, and you choose. You choose love over ego. You choose growth together. You choose to say, "I was wrong. Let's get it right." And in that choice, you find a power far greater than being right could ever offer.